1. I grew up in a small town in northern New England, in a house from the 1800s that was once a tavern, frequented by coaches on the way to Canada. Our house was the only property at the end of a steep dirt road that snaked into the woods. Our nearest neighbor owned a small farm that sold vegetables, firewood, maple products, and hay that grew in the many open fields along the road. The farmer was in his early 50s, and he had a younger brother in his late 30s who operated a small sawmill about a mile from our house. I remember him as being nice, handsome in retrospect, tall and lean with a deep tan and a broad smile. Like anyone in a small town, we got to know him through chance encounters around town and gossip passed down from friends and acquaintances. Most of the gossip centered around his rapid turnover of girlfriends and the strange relationship he had with his brother, our neighbor. He had a large Airedale Terrier named Maple that was always wandering along the road and patrolling the farm. She escorted me when I walked home from school and joined me when I went exploring in the woods. I was nervous around big dogs, but I loved animals and was flattered that she was so protective of me. He often drove past in his pickup when I was walking home from school or the library. It seemed like each time he idled the truck to say hi, he'd extend a different invitation. Sometimes he'd invite me to come visit and help him plant in his greenhouse. Other times he'd offer to show me the sugar house he shared with his brother. He had a man-made pond behind his house, and beginning in the early summer, he'd remind me that my parents and I could come swim in it at any time. I didn't think his behavior was strange at all. I was a sheltered 10-year-old girl and painfully shy, especially around men. The only reason I didn't take him up on any of his invitations was because talking to adults in general made me nervous, trip over my words, and sound amazingly stupid. That summer the afternoon heat reached a dizzying peak, and I started making the dusty trek to his house to cool off in the pond. I had a hideous lime green Land's End one-piece that I hid under shorts and a t-shirt until I could change in the privacy of the beech trees by the pond. The first few times I went swimming, I wasn't even aware of him being home. The house was dark and quiet, and I just assumed he was working. After each swim, I had to walk back up a steep hill through tall grass that hid the pond from the road. There was no way to get back without cutting through his backyard. As the summer wore on, he was home more and more, and began to block me on the path and give me gifts, quarts of maple syrup, sunflower seedlings for the greenhouse, etc. I didn't think much of it because he always told me that the gifts were for me to share with my parents. Still, I never told either my mom or dad about him because I technically wasn't supposed to walk that far away from home. One day I stayed at the pond late into the evening. As I was walking back up past the house, he came out from the darkened screened porch that overlooked the pond. He seemed feverish. The whites of his eyes were unusually large and bright. He put his hand on my shoulder and gripped it hard. He said that I looked tired and I should come inside to have a snack, and then he would drive me home. He tried steering me inside the house. I started fumbling for excuses. I told him that I had to get home before dark, or my mother would ground me and I wouldn't be able to swim at the pond anymore. His face darkened, but he relented. He said that at the very least he should drive me home. I was hot and exhausted, and his grip was far too strong to resist as he guided me to the truck. Almost immediately after I climbed into the passenger seat, Maple appeared from nowhere and leapt into the cab. He scolded her and tried shooing her away. That was the first time I had seen him genuinely angry, so much so that the muscles of his jaw roped under his skin. Maple ignored him, sitting on the floor by my feet and resting her head on my lap the whole ride back to the top of my dirt road. That was the last time I went swimming at his pond. One night, that October, Driving back from a fair with my parents, my dad's cell phone rang. For a while he didn't say anything at all. Then he began to speak in a low, anxious tone with my mother. I couldn't make out what they were saying from the back seat. I finally wrenched the story from my father after days of prying. The man had died in an accident at the sawmill. His leg had been nearly severed at the thigh, and he had bled out. No one had heard his cries for help. It wasn't until several years later that I unearthed the whole truth. When the police came to his house, they found a huge collection of child pornography. To this day, I still wonder if he would have driven me home, if Maple hadn't jumped into the front seat of the truck. 2. A few months ago, I visited my boyfriend, we're both in our early 20s, who lives in another European country, and decided to go there by coach just this once. All new experiences are good after all, or so I thought, even when some are uncomfortable. The ride there was supposed to take 12 hours, but as usual, I got a bit lost and ended up in Germany instead, and it took me 24 hours to get there in the end. But that is some other story. On my way back home, I had to sit next to someone for 8 hours, who I would have rather never met. I learned a lot about him during the ride. He was a few years older than my father, and loves anal sex. He also is in a long-term relationship, but his girlfriend does not mind if I were to warm his bed for a while. Apparently, that is how men are, or so he tried to convince me. All of this so far I found out in the first hour of the ride. Cheating is normal, expected even, so why don't you, hot stuff, tell your boy toy that you found a better stud? I do not know anyone who does not do that. It is very pleasant, so you should do it too, gorgeous. I know for sure that your boy toy is already with some other girl in his bed, messing around. I am aware that he is indeed in bed right now with some other female. I approve of it, since she is a cat, our cat. Don't make me laugh, sweetie. He cannot be faithful. No man can do that and remain sane. It is not how we are made. Do not fret, hottie. I can also make you feel good. Better than he could. After all you will need is 5 inches, and I got just that. I felt disgusted sitting next to him. Unfortunately, I could not find anyone to switch seats with, and had to stay there. No one seemed to be interested in it at all. Were asleep or could not speak English. I attempted to reassure myself that he will stop chatting after I do not respond, but no. He also hogged the armrest and soon after placed one of his arms on the seat in front of me, severely cutting into my personal space, especially since I was sitting next to the window. Could you please put your arm away? It is making me uncomfortable. How is it making you feel, sweetie? Hot? Bothered? Waiting for action? He replied with a lecherous grin, but gave in after I glared at him. As he lowered the arm, he let it accidentally brush against the side of my breast and put it on his lap. At that point, I made a few very loud threats to take further actions if he were to touch me inappropriately ever again. It was loud enough to wake several other passengers and gain a sympathetic look from an older woman sitting near us. I will point out that I was wearing my over-ear headphones during all of it, never once taking them off with music playing slowly. It was the only thing that kept me sane, but at some point, I wanted to modify the playlist, so I took out my laptop and tried to plug it in. Many people were working on their computers, so it was not that uncommon, especially since the coach had power sockets in every row. The one next to my seat was broken, so it took me some time to test if it was reasonable to actually turn on my computer. But he decided it was a good idea to press the on-off button for me, since I had lifted the lid in order to see if the light for power was on or not. Excuse me? He did not seem to understand what he did to get several sharp words and a 15-minute lecture for me about personal possessions and no-touch policy. You would not do anything like that to a stranger, maybe not even to a friend traveling with you, unless they specifically asked you to. Really, what was he thinking? His face clearly showed that he still did not understand or believe that anything was wrong at all. He was also helpful. Some time went by, and I, again, hear about just how much he loves to cheat on his girlfriend, because she did not like anal sex, but he only got off with it, so he simply had to find a different girl weekly, and was happy to meet me. He kept trying to ask me about my favorite positions, and other inappropriate things, despite me asking quite loudly as well for him to stop. He also told me his phone number, which I refused to write down or take a piece of toilet paper with it written on, and his full address in several countries, stating that he was very wealthy, but had to take coach because his plane tickets got lost. Yeah, right. Apparently, I also would have to shave my forearm hair when I come with him that evening, and make sure that I also do my eyebrows better since they look messy. What is the point of shaving and irritating the skin on my arms when the hair is not even visible? And why would I need overly thin eyebrows? It made me wish I had worn something other than the shirt with 3/4 length sleeves in order to cover more skin. Seeing as he was showing off his massive beard and almost all of his visible body parts were covered in thick fur, I took that part as a joke. Yes, I did say fur since it was excessively thick to be anything other than that. He wore a t-shirt with a deep V and some shorts. His skin looked sweaty at all times, and his black eyes often wandered off to stare at either my breasts or crotch for reasons unknown. He might have been handsome 30 years ago, but now, at the age of 53, it was no longer there. You are welcome for the mental picture. We reached the border and had to wait for the train to take us through the tunnel. But since our driver took his sweet time, we had to wait an extra 20 minutes. The weather turned bad as well, so in the end our 8-hour journey turned into 10. I will never travel by anything other than a plane ever again if it takes over 2 hours. After our coach stopped, I did not wait a second and pushed through the crowd to get off of the nightmarish ride. I picked up my bags and sprinted off, while hearing him shout a few times that I forgot to take his phone number with me. And I did not give him a kiss either. Let's never meet again. I wish I had never met you. 3. Age 15. Gender female. 6 years ago I had the scare of my life. When I was 15, I had gotten my first job working at McDonald's. When I wasn't at school, I was at work. I hardly had a day off. I didn't complain because my mom was a single parent, and she had to work to raise 2 kids at the same time. A lot of the times she could barely make ends meet. So when my ex-stepdad called and said he could hire me, I immediately took the job. Each payday I would make sure to help out my mom with bills or whatever she needed, and whatever was left I would spend the rest or save it for another time. I didn't mind having most of my money being spent for things like that. I was just glad I could help out my mom. In the beginning of October, I had a rare weekend off. I remember that I was thankful for it, because as much as I loved the money, working at McDonald's can be very draining. Anyway, it was a Saturday afternoon, and I was just lazing around the apartment in my pajamas watching TV, when my little sister came in the living room and tackled me. I admit she was being pretty annoying. "I'm bored," she whined. She wouldn't stop saying that, and it was getting on my nerves. Dealing with a hyper 9-year-old wasn't good for your tired. I tried telling her to go away and leave me alone, but sadly that didn't work, and eventually I caved in. So I decided to take her to the park that was nearby, so she would stop being as annoying. She was pleased with my decision and was pretty excited to go. I went to my room, got dressed, brushed my hair, and then asked my mom if it was okay to head out to the park. When she told us that it was fine as long as we got home before dark, we left. It was 3 p.m. at this time. The park wasn't that far from where we lived. It was about a 15-minute walk. I say 15 minutes because the town where we lived at was very hilly. A lot of the streets have pretty steep hills and whatnot. From where we lived, you could see the park at the top of a hill. It was basically 2 streets over from the huge apartment complex in which we lived. Climbing the hill or walking on the street was pretty difficult and dangerous. But luckily for us, there were these old cement steps we climbed instead. When we got to the park, my sister made a beeline towards the slides. I decided to go on the swings. Eventually, my sister got tired of the slides and came to join me. For a good while, we had fun. It was nice spending time with each other without getting on each other's nerves. Eventually, my arms got really tired, so I took a break and relaxed for a little bit. Sitting there on the swing, I decided to look at my surroundings when I noticed something that made me very uneasy. A middle-aged man staring at us. His hair was starting to grey, and he was wearing a dirty white t-shirt and jeans. He looked very out of place. There were no other kids at the park. Zoe couldn't have been a parent, and just the way he stared was fucking creepy. Following my gut instinct, I told my sister it was time to go. She was pretty upset at first, that is until she saw the man too. Thankfully our mom was a good parent, and taught us at a very young age what to do in case we encountered a stranger. I grabbed my sister's hand, and we started to leave the park. The man's eyes were following us. I tried not to notice, but it was pretty damn hard not to. It felt like forever until we reached those steps, and when we did, I decided to look back to see if he was there. Sure enough, he was, but he was following us, and to make matters worse, he was jogging towards us. I felt my heartbeat quicken as I tightened my hold on my sister's hand and sprinted down the stairs. Because we were holding each other's hands, we almost fell down quite a few times, but that didn't stop us one bit. The man seemed pretty close enough to hear his ragged breathing, which pushed us to run even faster. I don't know how we did it, but we managed to get down the stairs safely and uninjured. But the man was still chasing us. We didn't want to run home. We didn't want him to know where we lived. And we didn't want some possible pedophile to stalk us. So we went to the next best place. Luckily for us, we knew this lady who lived right by the stairs. We made a mad dash for her house and knocked on her door. Thankfully, she opened the door and saw the look of panic on our faces. She saw the man running towards us and promptly let us in. When we looked out her window, the man came to a complete stop and glared at us for about 5 minutes and then headed back the way he came. We stayed at the lady's house a good while until we felt that it was safe to go back home. I think we were really lucky. I don't know what might have happened if the man had got us on that day. And frankly, I really don't want to know. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 215. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And I cannot stress enough just how thankful I am, because it is not really much better on Let's Not Meet at the moment. I'm exploring some other subreddits looking for different stories, but Let's Not Meet, it seemed like it was improving a bit, but that seems just to be, the trickle of stories as it is seems to be the normal right now. And of course they are still deleting lots of good stories for whatever reason. Well, I'm still getting enough to work with, so I really shouldn't grumble too much. I hope you guys all had a nice weekend. Let's see, what date are we on right now? This will be up on the 15th, so yeah, that means we're about 2 weeks away from the next big video, the next 30 stories video. So I know for sure what I'll be doing on Monday the 29th. I'm sorry I've kept you waiting for so long for this, but I would have liked to have done it sooner, but it took a while to put together, and there was obviously the other issues that got in my way. But we're all good now, hopefully, and hopefully that way for a while. And there's that. I think the next big video I do, however, will probably be... I'll probably be a paranormal video, because I seem to be able to get those stories a bit easier. The regular scary stories are a bit harder to get my hands on at the moment, as I said. But, so I'm not sure if I'm going to wait until Halloween, and like I did last year with the big Halloween video, and I might just wait till then, or if I might put one out before then. We'll see. But on the 29th, there will be a regular Scary Stories video, 30 of them, and hopefully you enjoy it. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.